1984 by George Orwell. George Orwell is a novelist, essayist, and critic who was born in Mathura, India on June 25, 1903. Some of his famous novels are Animal Farm and 1984, by demonstrating strong opinions about major political movements of his times, imperialism, fascism, and communism. 1984 is a novel that covers about totalitarianism. Totalitarianism is a type of government that tries to control every aspect of life, how people spend every minute of their time, whom they associate with, and the words they are allowed to say and control what they think and believe. George Orwell, who knew about totalitarianism based on the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany, decided to give his reader a clear picture of a life in England, a free country under totalitarian rule. The setting of 1984 is in London, which is described as a depressing place where there are never enough to eat, enough clothes or shoes to wear. The city is dilapidated except for a giant pyramid-shaped government building that rises above the landscape. This government always watches what people do. There are even posters in the streets about Big Brothers, who's supposedly the leader of the government, that says, "Big Brother is watching you." Additionally, the Dot Police, who acts as police in modern times, hidden cameras and microphones everywhere for the government to watch the citizens. The police take people away and throw them into a forced labor camp when these rules are violated. Citizens are not allowed to have close friends, in love, or date someone they like. However, as citizens are forced to attend pep rallies, including 2-minute hits, there is no time to think about their thoughts since the government is filling people's heads with propaganda. Winston Smith is the main character of this novel. He is 39, has a job in the government, and lives a life without any existence of friends or anyone in his life. At the beginning of the story, he writes a diary about how he hates his life in this society, even though writing a diary is also one of those roles that are highly restricted. The diary, for Smith, is his place for thinking about his society, and only place where he imagines if life could possibly be different from the way it is. There are two other main characters besides Smith, Julia and O'Brien. Julia is a young, attractive woman who works in the same building as him. In the beginning, Smith hates Julia because of her attractiveness, but by the fact he can't have her. However, Smith also believes Julia is a person who will turn him against the police. So he's afraid of her, but also fascinated to shorten. O'Brien is a member of the dinner party, making him a boss who is much higher than Smith. Smith should be afraid of O'Brien, but he believes that O'Brien is an intelligent person who could also turn him against the police. The book takes a turn when Julia slips Smith a note that says, "I love you." This note completely changes Smith's world. He was definitely interested, and he could not wait to get in touch with her. Meanwhile, it's very difficult for them to have a conversation with each other in the private that is full of spies and cameras. Luckily, they do manage to get out of the area, and the love affair starts. This love affair makes them both happy but worried, since they can be killed or sent to labor camps if they get caught. At last, Smith has someone who understands him and hates their party as much as he does, O'Brien. O'Brien sends an invitation to Smith and Julia to visit his apartment for a work-related meeting. The invitation in the world Smith lives means rebellion because it is a violating of the law. Feeling companionship, Julia and Smith visit O'Brien's house and confess that they want to rebel against the government. In response to Smith's confession, O'Brien also agrees to this couple's statement and offers him a book to read that explains the corruption of their modern-day government. As Smith reads the book, he was blown away by it. Abruptly, as Smith finishes reading the book, the Dot Police burst in and arrest him and Julia. They were carried off to the Ministry of Love and were tortured. Smith and Julia were tortured in various ways. The Dot Police broke his bone and teeth, and were shocked by electric shock and starved him. As Smith was getting tortured, the police tell him to tell all he knows. As a result, he confesses everything to the police, including his relationship between Julia. After continual torture, O'Brien finally tells Smith what the government actually wants. They want people like Smith to say 2 + 2 = 5, without the purpose to avoid a beating. The government wants to exercise of total power over people's mind rather than trying to control people's mind for some other purposes. The police decided to release Smith after torture in room 101. Smith was forced to be locked on his face into a cage full of mice and threatened him to let these rats hit his face. Smith, who has a phobia of rats, loses his sanity and says, "Do it to Julia, not me." This statement, which is a complete betrayal of what was most important to him, the government let Julia and Smith go. After they were freed, two of them meet on the outside, but their relationship is completely broken. Smith has changed to the point where he does not think about any rebellious actions. He sits in a cafe as listening to the news and smiles as he loved the big brother.